Don't touch me, Daniel. Those 4 words slammed into me like a runaway truck, delivered with such cold disgust that it felt like the air in our living room instantly turned frigid. My hand stopped dead in mid-motion, hovering just inches from my wife's shoulder. For 6 years, that shoulder had been familiar ground. I'd reached for it in moments of comfort, desire, and absent-minded affection more times than I could count. And now, without warning, it might as well have been off-limits. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't press her for an explanation. I just gave a short nod, turned my back, and walked away in silence. Before long, that silence would become the strongest message I'd ever sent. That night, the guest bedroom felt like someone else's space. We'd bought the house together 3 years earlier, calling it a temporary stop on the way to something bigger, but I'd never once slept in that room. The bed felt wrong beneath me, too stiff in places and too soft in others, and the sheets carried the stale smell of something rarely used. I lay there awake, staring up at the ceiling fan as it turned slowly above me, replaying her words again and again in my head. The expression in her eyes hadn't been simple irritation or anger. It was something far worse. It was disgust. My own wife was repelled by my touch. The only question left was why. In hindsight, the signs had been there long before that moment. I just hadn't wanted to see them. The late hours at the office. The unfamiliar cologne clinging to her clothes, something that definitely wasn't mine. The way her phone would flip face down the second I walked into the room. These were red flags so obvious even a blind man could have picked them out. But love has a way of convincing you not to look too closely. Olivia and I had spent years talking about our dream house. It was never just supposed to be a structure with walls and a roof. It was meant to be our future. 3 bedrooms for the kids we always said we'd have. A wraparound porch where we'd drink coffee in the mornings and watch ourselves grow old. A maple tree in the backyard, sturdy enough one day to hold a tire swing. I'd poured myself into making that dream possible. For years, I worked 60-hour weeks at the architecture firm, stashing away every extra dollar I could. Olivia contributed too, sure, but most of the money came from my overtime, my bonuses, and the sacrifices I made without complaint. The morning after her icy rejection, I stood in our kitchen and watched her act like nothing was wrong. She sipped her coffee, scrolled through her phone, and casually talked about new ideas for the house, as if we hadn't just crossed a line we could never uncross. "I'm thinking marble countertops," she said, still avoiding my eyes. "Ethan says it can increase the resale value by at least 15%. Ethan. Our contractor." The name lingered between us. "Sounds pricey," I said calmly. That finally got her attention. She looked up at me, searching my face. "It's our dream home, Daniel," she said. "Don't you think it's worth it?" Our dream home. The irony nearly crushed me. "Of course," I replied, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "Whatever you think is best." Relief spread across her face, and in that exact moment, everything clicked into place. My doubts hardened into certainty. That relief had nothing to do with countertops or home values. It was relief that I hadn't questioned her. Relief that I stayed quiet. Relief that dependable, predictable Daniel was still playing his role, funding the dream while remaining oblivious to the nightmare forming right in front of him. I decided then that I wouldn't confront her. Not yet. Confrontation would only give her room to deny, to twist the truth, to make me question what my gut already knew. No. I would wait. I would observe. And I would prepare. For the next 2 weeks, I turned into a detective inside my own marriage. I left for work at the usual time, but instead of driving off, I parked a block away and walked back, slipping quietly through the rear entrance. The first day, I found nothing. The second day, I heard her voice drifting from our bedroom. She was on the phone, laughing in a way I hadn't heard in months. "I know, I can't wait either," she murmured, her tone low and intimate. "He has no idea. He's too busy with blueprints and budget spreadsheets to notice anything." I stopped cold in the hallway, my heart pounding so hard I was sure it would give me away. "Oh God, Ethan, the things you say," she went on, laughing like a teenager. "Yes, tomorrow. He has that client dinner. There was a pause, then she added, I'll come to your place. I'll bring the updated house plans. I slipped back out as quietly as I'd entered, my thoughts spiraling. So it was Ethan. The man we hired to build our home was involved with my wife behind my back. And from the sound of it, he was helping her plan something behind my back as well. After that, I couldn't unsee the things I'd ignored before. The way she stepped out of the room to take calls. The unfamiliar aftershave scent when she came home. The enthusiasm in her voice every time she mentioned Ethan's name. Ethan thinks we should expand the master bathroom. Ethan found this incredible tile. Ethan says a hot tub on the deck would be perfect. Ethan. 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 He might as well have been living with us. At work, my concentration collapsed. My design suffered, and eventually my boss, Robert, pulled me aside after I fumbled a major presentation. What's going on with you, Brooks? He asked. This isn't like you. I hesitated before settling on a half-truth. Marital issues, I said. Nothing I can't handle. His expression softened. I've been there. Take some time if you need it. Just don't lose the Miller account. That account alone was worth 7 figures. That night, I called my old college friend Lucas, who'd been through a brutal divorce a couple of years earlier. After listening, he didn't sugarcoat it. You need evidence, he said. Pennsylvania's a no-fault state, but with assets like this house, proof of infidelity can still matter. What kind of proof? I asked. Texts. Emails. Credit card statements. Hotel charges. Photos, if you can get them. And document everything. Dates, times, patterns. Start a journal. So I did. I set up a password-protected file on my personal laptop and started logging every detail. Olivia's late nights. The sudden shopping sprees. The hushed phone calls. Every mention of Ethan. Still, I needed something undeniable. Not for a judge, Lucas was right about the law, but for myself. I needed to silence that small, desperate voice inside me that kept insisting there had to be an innocent explanation. My chance came one evening when Olivia left her laptop open on the coffee table and disappeared into the shower. A familiar notification chime broke the silence, and my eyes drifted to the glowing screen before I could stop myself. I paused for a heartbeat, then crossed the room. The message preview made my stomach drop. From Ethan Caldwell, can't wait to see you tomorrow. Your husband still clueless? I opened the thread, and in an instant, 6 years of trust collapsed like a house with no foundation. What I read wasn't just an affair. It was strategy. They talked about how to push me into approving costly upgrades for the house. How important it was that every loan and document stayed in my name. How, once the paperwork was finalized, she'd file for divorce, blaming my long hours and emotional distance. Ethan had thought it all through. He described a future where they'd live in my dream home, paid for with my money, while I'd be stuck covering the mortgage on a place I wouldn't even be allowed to step foot in. I almost feel bad for the guy, Ethan had typed. Almost. Olivia replied without hesitation. Don't. He's so obsessed with this house, he doesn't see what's happening right in front of him. Trust me, he deserves this. 6 years together, and that was her verdict. That I deserved to lose my dream, my savings, and my self-respect. I took screenshots of everything, my hands steady despite the rage burning in my chest, and emailed them to myself. Then I closed the laptop and placed it back exactly where it had been. I walked to the bathroom door, knocked softly, and told her I was heading out for a walk to clear my head. Whatever, she called over the rush of the shower. Don't forget we have dinner with the Reynolds tomorrow night. I walked for hours. My feet throbbed, and the cool night air dried the tears I didn't bother wiping away. By the time I finally headed home, the anger had settled into something sharper. A plan. Olivia was already asleep or pretending to be when I slipped into the guest room. That night, I didn't rest. I strategized. The next morning, I called in sick for the first time in 3 years. As soon as Olivia left for her job at the real estate office, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to Andrew, my old college roommate who now worked as a financial advisor. "Daniel? Man, it's been forever," he said. "How's that dream house coming along?" "That's actually why I'm calling," I told him. "I need to restructure my finances." Quietly. And fast. There was a brief pause. "Everything okay?" "It will be," I said. "Can you see me today?" 2 hours later, I sat across from him in his office while he laid out my options. "Most of the savings came from your income, and you've documented everything," he explained. "You're legally entitled to withdraw your portion. It won't empty the joint account, but it's a significant amount. We can move it to a new account at a completely different bank." "Do it," I said. "And Andrew, this stays between us." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Understood. Just take care of yourself, okay? Don't do anything reckless." "This is the most calculated thing I've ever done," I assured him. My second call was to Laura Kensington, one of the most respected divorce attorneys in the city. Her office overlooked the river, all glass and steel. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, and known for being relentless without crossing the line. After I finished explaining everything, she leaned back in her chair. "So you want to move before she does," she said. "Exactly. I have proof of the affair and their plans. I'm not looking for revenge. I just want what's mine." Laura tapped her pen against her notepad. "You're doing the right thing. Most people wait until they're served, and by then money has a habit of disappearing." She leaned forward. "Here's the plan. First, secure your finances, which you've already started. Second, keep documenting everything. Third, line up a place to stay before you make any moves. And finally, we file the moment you're ready." "How long does it take?" I asked. "If it's uncontested, 3 months. Once she realizes you're ahead of her, it likely won't be. Then we're looking at 6 months to a year. But with your evidence, we're in a strong position." The third call was to take personal leave for Friday, the day we were supposed to sign the final papers and put down the deposit on our dream house. For the next few days, I played my part. I kissed Olivia goodbye every morning. I talked floor plans in the evenings. I smiled and nodded while pretending my entire life wasn't built on a lie. On Thursday, while she was at work, I transferred my share of our savings, just over $230,000, into my new account. I left her money untouched. I wasn't stealing from her. I was refusing to be robbed. I packed 2 suitcases with the essentials and loaded them into the trunk of my car, which I'd parked a block away to avoid raising suspicion. I'd already rented a furnished apartment downtown on a month-to-month lease. It wasn't much, but it was a safe place to land. That night, Olivia was unusually affectionate. She ran her fingers through my hair as we watched TV. "Tomorrow's the big day," she said, her eyes bright with what I once would have mistaken for shared excitement. "After all this planning, we're finally making our dream come true." I smiled and kissed her forehead. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Tomorrow changes everything." Later, as she slept beside me for the last time, I studied her face in the dim light filtering through the curtains. She looked peaceful. Beautiful. Innocent. The woman I'd once trusted completely. It was hard to reconcile that image with the calculating stranger I now knew she was. I wanted to wake her up. To ask when she'd stopped loving me. When I'd turned from husband into obstacle. Instead, I said goodbye in silence to the life we'd built and the future I thought we shared. By this time tomorrow, it would all be gone. Friday morning, Olivia was up early, buzzing with nervous excitement. "I laid out your blue suit," she said, straightening my tie. "The one that makes you look like an architect who can actually afford a house like this." She laughed. I didn't. "Ethan says the builder is really excited about our plans," Olivia said casually. "He's even bringing champagne to celebrate after we sign." Of course he was. I'll meet you there, she added, already grabbing her purse. I just need to stop by the office and pick up those revised bathroom sketches. She flashed me a bright smile. Perfect. I'll head over early and make sure everything's ready. I had no doubt she would. Once she walked out the door, I took one last, slow walk through the house. I didn't rush. I didn't hesitate either. I gathered nothing more than my clothes, my personal paperwork, and a handful of photos from my life before Olivia existed in it. Everything else was just furniture and walls. All replaceable. Trust wasn't. I drove straight to my new apartment, dropped off my bags, then headed across town to a quiet coffee shop. I ordered an Americano, opened my laptop, and waited, keeping an eye on the clock. At 2:30 p.m., 30 minutes after we were supposed to meet the builder, my phone started vibrating nonstop. 6 missed calls from Olivia. 3 from an unfamiliar number I had no trouble identifying as Ethan. The texts poured in, each one more frantic than the last. Where are you? The builder's waiting. Daniel, this isn't funny. Call me right now. At 3:30 p.m., I finally answered. Hello, Olivia. Daniel, where the hell are you? She snapped. Everyone's here, the builder, the designer. Ethan came to help answer technical questions. We've been waiting over an hour. Beneath the anger, I could hear it. Panic. The creeping realization that something had gone horribly wrong. I'm not coming, I said evenly. What? She laughed nervously. What do you mean you're not coming? Of course you're coming. This is our dream house. Our future. No, I replied calmly. It was my dream. My future. My money. And I've decided to invest it somewhere else. There was dead silence on the line. What are you talking about? She finally whispered. Daniel, you're scaring me. You should take a look at our joint account, I suggested. There's been a sizable withdrawal. My portion, to be exact. Another pause, longer this time. I could picture her staring at her phone, color draining from her face as the truth settled in. You can't do this, she said quietly. I already did. But the builder, the deposit, everyone's here. That sounds like something for you and Ethan to figure out. Her sharp inhale told me everything. Yes, Olivia, I continued. I know about Ethan. I know about your plan for my house. I know all of it. I can explain, she rushed. Don't. I'll have divorce papers ready next week. Divorce? She gasped. Daniel, this is crazy. You can't be serious. Where are you? We need to talk face to face. There's nothing left to discuss, I said. You and Ethan tried to steal my dream and my money. You failed. That's the end. It wasn't like that, she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. Ethan manipulated me. He said things. Made me believe things. Like what? I asked. That I deserved this? That I was too obsessed with the house to notice you cheating? That I was a workaholic who neglected you? I saw the messages, Olivia. Every single one. She made a choking sound on the other end. You went through my private messages, she snapped. How dare you? I laughed, hollow and sharp. That's rich. You were planning to rob me blind, and you're offended about privacy? Goodbye, Olivia. Daniel, wait. I ended the call. What came next was chaos, and I watched it all from a distance. Olivia called relentlessly until I blocked her number. She showed up at my office and caused such a scene that security had to escort her out. Friends started reaching out, acting as go-betweens. She's falling apart, our mutual friend Natalie told me over coffee a week later. She says it was a stupid mistake. That Ethan manipulated her. Did she mention the plan to take the house? I cut in. Natalie shifted uncomfortably. She said it was just talk. That she never would have gone through with it. And you believe that? She sighed. I don't know what to believe. I just know she's hurting. So was I said quietly. The difference is, I didn't cause this. Ethan disappeared from Olivia's life almost immediately once it became clear the house was off the table. Word got around that he'd moved on to another wealthy client, a recently divorced woman with expensive taste and a generous settlement. Meanwhile, Olivia started telling anyone who would listen that I'd had a mental breakdown. That I'd become paranoid and controlling. That she'd only leaned on Ethan for emotional support because I'd abandoned her emotionally. I said nothing. I let her rewrite history. And I waited. The divorce officially began with a summons. Laura had warned me it wouldn't be smooth. She's contesting everything, my attorney said during our third meeting. She's claiming her contributions were non-financial but substantial, supporting your career, maintaining the household, managing your social life. She worked full-time, I pointed out. We split chores evenly. And I built my career myself with 60-hour weeks. Laura nodded. We'll make that clear. The good news is the evidence, her affair and the plan to defraud you puts us in a strong position. The bad news is she's dragging this out, which means higher legal fees. I don't care, I said. I just want it finished. The process was brutal. Olivia's lawyer painted me as a cold, emotionally unavailable workaholic who drove his wife into another man's arms. My attorney responded with proof, texts, emails, and documented plans showing Olivia's betrayal and intent to defraud me. The hardest day was the deposition. Sitting across from Olivia at a long conference table, answering sworn questions about the most private parts of our marriage. Her eyes were rimmed red, her face thinner than I remembered. She'd lost weight. Despite everything, seeing her like that still hurt. Mr. Brooks, her attorney asked, would you say you prioritized your career over your marriage? No, I said calmly. I prioritized our future. I paused. Including the house we were building together. And on average, how many hours a week did you work? Her attorney pressed. Usually between 50 and 60, I answered. So significantly more than a standard workweek, he said. Yes, I replied. Because I was saving for our dream home. The same dream home you chose not to build, he shot back. Laura didn't miss a beat. Objection. That misrepresents the facts. Mr. Brooks chose not to participate in fraud. And that was how it went, question after question, hour after exhausting hour. During a short recess, Olivia found me in the hallway. Laura had stepped away to take a call, and her lawyer was nowhere in sight. Daniel, she said quietly, lowering her voice. This is ridiculous. We're burning thousands on attorneys when we could just talk this out. I didn't respond. I just looked at her, my expression flat and unreadable. I made a horrible mistake, she continued. The worst one of my life. But 6 years together has to mean something. She swallowed. We could try again. Counseling. A clean slate. There's nothing left to talk about, Olivia, I said evenly. You showed me exactly who you are. And I believe you. That wasn't the real me, she insisted. It was a lapse in judgment. A moment of weakness. The real me is the woman you spent 6 years with. I held her gaze. Which version of you told Ethan I deserved to be robbed blind? Which version planned to divorce me after the house was secured? Was that just a moment of weakness too? She flinched. I never would have followed through, she said quickly. It was just talk. Stupid fantasy talk. Save it for the judge, I replied. 3 weeks after I walked away, while the divorce crawled forward, she sent me an email. It was long and disorganized, filled with excuses tangled up with frantic apologies. She claimed it had all started harmlessly, flirting that spiraled out of control. Ethan had made her feel wanted in ways she said I hadn't in years. He'd manipulated her with attention and promises, pulling her into a fantasy she swore she never meant to live out. I never stopped loving you, she wrote. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I don't deserve forgiveness, but please, at least talk to me. 6 years doesn't just disappear. She ended it the same way. Please, Daniel. I miss you. I miss us. I miss our life. I read the email twice, searching myself for something: anger, satisfaction, regret, even lingering affection. There was nothing. Just a hollow space where our marriage used to be. I never replied. As the legal process dragged on, I threw myself into my work at the firm. A promotion I'd earned long ago finally came through. One Friday afternoon, Robert called me into his office. Brooks, I'm putting you on the Harrington project, he said. Full creative control. Triple your usual fee. I stared at him. The Harrington project was a massive eco-resort on the coast, exactly the kind of assignment architects wait their whole careers for. Why me? I asked. Because you've done the best work of your life these past few months, Robert said. Funny how that works. Your personal life collapses, and your professional life takes off. He wasn't wrong. Once I stopped pretending my marriage was fine, every ounce of energy went into my designs. They were sharper. Braver. More honest. Thank you, I said. I won't disappoint you. I know, he replied. Then he hesitated. For what it's worth, I went through something similar. First year after my divorce was hell. Second year got easier. Third year, I met Victoria. He smiled. We've been together 20 years now. Just saying, it does get better. I settled into a small apartment downtown and kept it simple. No oversized suburban house filled with empty rooms. Just a clean, modern space with exactly what I needed. I reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with during my marriage. Bit by bit, I started putting my life back together. 6 months after I walked away, the divorce was finalized. We reached a settlement. Olivia kept the house we'd been living in. I kept my retirement account and the money I'd withdrawn for the dream home. It wasn't painless, but it was final. After the last hearing, Laura shook my hand. You handled this well. Most people let emotions steer them into bad choices. You stayed disciplined. I had a good teacher, I said. She smiled. What's next for you? I thought for a moment. I think I'll design something just for myself. A house that isn't a compromise. Sounds like more than architecture, she said. I guess it is. A few weeks later, I ran into Emily Foster at the coffee shop near my apartment. She'd been a client at the firm the year before, a sharp structural engineer with a fast wit and an even faster mind. We'd worked well together, but back then, we were both unavailable. Now, apparently, we weren't. Daniel Brooks, she said, smiling as we reached for the same blueberry muffin. I almost didn't recognize you without blueprints in your hands. Emily, I said, genuinely glad to see her. How's the community center holding up? Rock solid, she said. Thanks to your design. How's the dream house coming along? Last time we talked, you couldn't stop raving about heated floors and bay windows. I hesitated, then decided honesty was easier. Plans changed. No house. She tilted her head. And the marriage? Also gone. I'm sorry, she said softly. Don't be, I replied. Sometimes tearing down a bad foundation is the only way to build something better. She laughed. That might be the most architect thing anyone's ever said. We ended up sharing a table, splitting the muffins neither of us wanted to fight over. The conversation flowed, work at first, then life. She told me she'd left her boyfriend 6 months earlier after discovering he'd been hiding a gambling addiction. I told her about Olivia, Ethan, and the house that never existed. What I don't get, Emily said, is how she thought she'd never get caught. Did she really believe you wouldn't figure it out? I shrugged. People talk themselves into whatever version of reality suits them. She decided I was too obsessed with blueprints and budgets to notice what was happening at home. I paused. And for a long time, she wasn't wrong. Emily studied me over the rim of her coffee cup. You don't sound nearly as bitter as I would be. Bitterness takes emotional investment, I said. I've spent all of that where Olivia is concerned. So what now? She asked. Back to the drawing board? She smiled, clearly pleased with her own pun. Actually, yes, I said. I've started sketching ideas for a place of my own. Smaller. More efficient. A house designed for one. Her expression shifted instantly from casual to professional curiosity. I'd love to see those plans sometime, she said. Strictly in a professional capacity, of course. Of course, I agreed and realized I was feeling something I hadn't in months. A faint spark. Possibility. We exchanged numbers before heading our separate ways, tossing around loose plans to look over my designs together over dinner. As I walked back to my apartment, I felt lighter. Not fixed, healed was still a long way off, but maybe heading in that direction. 3 days later, Emily didn't text. She called. That alone felt intentional. So, she said without greeting, about those house plans. I have some thoughts. You haven't even seen them yet. Professional ethics, she replied. I can't allow an architect to design something structurally irresponsible. I laughed. And you're assuming my design is questionable? All architects push limits, she said. It's genetic. Someone has to rein you in. And that someone is you? Obviously. Dinner tonight? I know a place with excellent structural integrity and even better pasta. I smiled despite myself. Text me the address. Dinner with Emily was effortless. No posturing. No subtext games. We talked shop, her latest bridge project, my work on the Harrington Eco Resort, and she challenged my ideas without dismissing them. It was invigorating. Afterward, she insisted on seeing my apartment. I need to know if your personal space matches your design philosophy, she explained as we walked the 3 blocks back. If it doesn't, everything I think I know about you collapses. The apartment was simple but comfortable. Clean lines. Open layout. Light everywhere. Emily moved through it slowly, examining details, running her fingers along the custom bookshelf I'd built. Well? I asked. Consistent, she said. Thoughtful. Uncluttered. Then she turned to me. But it's missing something. What's that? Warmth, she said. It's controlled. Very cerebral. Where's the passion, Daniel? The question caught me off guard. I'm not sure I have much of that left. She stepped closer. I don't believe that for a second. You don't design the way you do without passion. You've just channeled it into places where it feels safer. And that's a problem? It's understandable, she said. But temporary, I hope. She checked the time. I should go. But about those plans, I meant it. I'd really like to see them. Maybe this weekend? After she left, I sat on the couch and replayed the evening. For the first time since Olivia's betrayal, I'd connected with someone truly connected. It was equal parts thrilling and terrifying. Over the next few weeks, Emily and I found a rhythm. Dinners a couple times a week. Long hours collaborating on the Harrington project. She'd been brought in as a consulting engineer. Weekend drives to potential sites for my house. We never labeled it. If it was dating, neither of us said the word. We were professionals who enjoyed each other's company. That was all. Until the night of the Harrington presentation. The clients loved it. Champagne flowed. Adrenaline lingered. And in a quiet corner of the bar, Emily kissed me. I froze. It had been so long since a kiss meant desire instead of obligation. Longer than I realized, longer even than the months before Olivia's betrayal, when affection had become performance. Emily pulled back, immediately reading my hesitation. Too soon, she asked. I don't know, I admitted. I'm still recalibrating. She nodded, unbothered. I respect that. Just don't overcorrect. I frowned slightly. I like your original wiring, she added. 3 days later, as I was leaving work, I spotted a familiar figure sitting on a bench outside the building. Olivia. She looked thinner. Less polished. The woman who'd once curated every detail of her appearance now looked worn down by reality. She stood when she saw me. Daniel, she said quietly. Thank you for not calling security. What do you want, Olivia? I stopped a few steps away, hands in my pockets. I needed to see you. To talk. In person. I checked my watch. 5 minutes. Relief washed over her face. Thank you. Can we sit? I'd rather stand. She nodded, accepting the boundary. I know you got my email. I did. And you didn't reply. I had nothing to say. She flinched. I deserved that. Probably worse. I waited. Silence had always unsettled her. She rushed to fill it, just like she always had. Ethan's gone, she said finally. He left town after everything collapsed. That doesn't surprise me. No. She twisted her hands together. Losing the house hurt. But losing you, her voice cracked. I didn't realize what I had. How steady you were. How you always kept your word. I took that for granted. Yes, I said. You did. Tears filled her eyes. I've been in therapy. Trying to understand why I would throw away everything for something so shallow. Why I'd hurt the one person who always had my back. And what did therapy teach you? I asked. That I'm broken in ways I didn't recognize, she said. That I sabotage stability. That I panic when things become permanent. I was scared of actually getting the life I said I wanted. It was a well-crafted explanation. Thoughtful. Possibly sincere. It changed nothing. I truly hope therapy gives you what you're looking for, Olivia. I mean that. For a split second, I saw hope spark in her eyes. So, does that mean there's still a chance for us? She asked. I shook my head slowly. No. There isn't. But 6 years, Daniel, she said, almost pleading. 6 years doesn't just vanish. They didn't vanish, I replied. They taught me things I should have learned sooner about trust, about being attentive, and about respecting myself. I could earn your trust again. I'd spend years proving myself if you'd just give me another chance. I looked at her then. Really looked. And all I felt was a distant, almost clinical kind of pity. The divorce papers are already with your attorney, I said. I've been more than fair in the settlement. I suggest you sign them and move forward. I already have. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Are you seeing someone? There it was, the old Olivia peeking through. Possessive. Entitled. Still believing she had a claim. My personal life stopped being your concern a long time ago. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back before she could touch me. Please, Daniel. People make mistakes. What we had was good before I ruined it. We could fix this. No, Olivia. We can't. Because I finally see you clearly now. And I deserve better than what you gave me. Her face collapsed. I still love you. But you don't respect me, I said calmly. You never really did. And without respect, love is just a convenient story people tell themselves. I glanced at my watch again. Your 5 minutes are up. Goodbye, Olivia. I walked away while her quiet sobs dissolved into the background. I didn't feel victorious. There was no satisfaction in it. Just a steady, grounded certainty that I was finally building something real, my life, on my terms, with foundation strong enough to withstand betrayal. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Still on for dinner tonight? I've been thinking about those sustainable housing ideas of yours. I smiled as I typed back. Absolutely. I'm considering adding a wraparound porch. Always wanted one. That evening over dinner, I told Emily about running into Olivia. How did it feel? She asked, twirling pasta around her fork. Seeing her again? Like talking to a stranger, I said after a moment. Someone I used to know, but don't anymore. That sounds healthy, she said. Better than anger. Anger would mean you still care. She set her fork down and looked at me. Do you? I thought carefully before answering. The version of her I believed in? I grieved that person. The woman she actually is? No. She's a stranger to me now. Emily nodded. That's how I felt when I found out about Thomas's gambling. Like I'd been living with an imposter. How did you move past it? I asked. Time. Distance. Building a life that didn't include him. And eventually, letting new connections form, ones that didn't feel like copies of the old ones. I reached across the table and took her hand. It felt unfamiliar and comfortable at the same time. Something new, but grounded in what we'd already built. I'd like to explore this, I said quietly. When I'm ready. I'm not going anywhere, she replied, squeezing my hand. The structural integrity of this relationship can handle a slow pace. I laughed. Always thinking like an engineer. Always, she said. 6 months later, construction officially began on my new house. It wasn't the grand dream Olivia and I had once planned. It was something better, something that belonged entirely to me. Sustainable materials. Passive solar design. A structure that fit the land instead of dominating it. Emily had reviewed the plans, challenged my assumptions, refined a few ideas. It became a collaboration, even though the house itself remained unmistakably mine. She stood beside me as the excavator carved the first trench into the earth. Autumn had settled in, painting the trees around the clearing in reds and golds. Nervous? She asked. Excited, I corrected. This feels right. The foundation looks solid, she said approvingly. I had expert input. As we watched the beginnings take shape, she slipped her hand into mine. Our relationship unfolded slowly and intentionally. We were both aware of the scars we carried. Neither of us had stayed the night at the other's place yet, though we'd come close more than once. It wasn't fear. It was respect for what that step would mean. You know, she said casually, I'm not saying I want to move in or anything. But hypothetically, someone like me might appreciate an office with eastern light for morning calculations. I smiled. Hypothetically, I can see the appeal. The plans already include a second bedroom that could double as an office. Hypothetically convenient. A year after breaking ground, I moved into the finished house. It was exactly what I'd imagined, open but cozy, modern yet warm. A true reflection of who I'd become. The wraparound porch overlooked a narrow stream. The main bedroom faced the forest, its wall of windows catching the morning light. And yes, the second bedroom, with its eastern exposure, had somehow transformed into a shared space with a drafting table and an engineer's workstation. Over time, Emily brought more of her things over, though she kept her apartment. We weren't rushing. There was no deadline to meet. I ran into Olivia once about a year after the divorce was finalized. It was at a mutual friend's wedding. Awkward, but polite. She no longer looked haunted. She seemed steadier. She was there with a quiet, academic-looking man who didn't resemble Ethan or me in any way. We exchanged brief pleasantries. I felt nothing beyond a mild hope that she'd found what she was searching for. Emily had noticed from across the room and joined me once Olivia moved on. Ex-wife? She asked softly. Yes. And nothing. She belongs to an old blueprint, one I'm no longer building from. Emily slipped her arm through mine. Good answer, architect. 2 years to the day after Olivia had said, "Don't touch me, Daniel," I stood on my porch watching the sunset spill amber and gold across the sky. The house wasn't as large as the one we'd once planned together. But it was strong, sustainable, and undeniably mine. Well, mostly mine. "Penny for your thoughts, architect," Emily said, handing me a glass of wine as she joined me at the railing. "Just taking in the view," I said, slipping my arm around her shoulders, my thoughts drifting, naturally, to foundations. She laughed and leaned into me. Always the architect. Some clichés stick around because they're true. Inside, dinner was finishing up in the oven, a dish Emily had perfected over the last few months as she'd spent more and more time at my place. That morning, over coffee, she'd casually mentioned how pointless it felt to keep paying rent on an apartment she'd barely stepped into anymore. Just as casually, I'd suggested she could solve that problem by giving it up altogether. "Are you asking me to move in with you, Brooks?" she'd asked, one eyebrow lifting. "I'm simply making a practical recommendation regarding efficient use of resources," I'd replied, hiding my grin behind my mug. "Very romantic. If you'd prefer something more formal, I could prepare a proposal. Blueprints, structural calculations, cost-benefit analysis." She'd thrown a napkin at my head. "You're impossible." "So, is that a yes?" "It's a let me think about it." Now, standing on the porch with the sunset fading into dusk, she turned to face me. "I've been thinking," she said. "Which is always a risky activity. I've decided your resource allocation argument holds up." I met her eyes. "Is that engineer speak for yes?" She smiled. "It is. But Daniel, I'm not Olivia. I never will be. I need to know you're not trying to rebuild what you lost." I didn't hesitate. "I'm not. What I lost wasn't real. It was a mirage. This us is solid. It's real. It's honest." I took her hand and pressed it to my chest. "I'm not rebuilding the past, Emily. I'm designing the future." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Good answer. Again." 3 years after the night my marriage first began to unravel, Emily and I stood in the backyard of our home now, since she'd officially moved in 6 months earlier. The maple tree we'd planted when construction ended had taken root, growing taller and stronger with each season. Much like we had. "I've been working on something," I said, guiding her toward my office. "Another design?" she asked, intrigued. "In a way." I handed her a small velvet box. "It's a different kind of blueprint." Her eyes widened as she opened it, revealing a simple, elegant engagement ring. "Daniel." I held up a hand quickly. "I'm not proposing just yet. This is more of a preliminary design review." She laughed, that open, fearless laugh that had pulled me in from the beginning. "Only you would frame a proposal like that." "I want you to know I didn't rush this," I said. "I've thought it through. Carefully. Thoroughly." I took a breath. "What happened with Olivia? It's not an open wound anymore. It's just a scar. A reminder to build smarter next time." Emily touched the ring but left it in the box. "And this would be the smarter build? The best one. Because this time, I'm building with someone who sees the entire structure, not just the surface. Someone who checks the foundation before raising a single wall." "That's a lot of responsibility," she said quietly. "Being someone's solid ground." "We're that for each other," I said. "That's the difference." She closed the box but kept it in her hand. "There's no rush," I added. "Take all the time you." "Yes." I blinked. "Yes? My professional evaluation is that this design is structurally sound," she said. "All specifications meet or exceed code." I laughed. "Is that engineer speak for yes?" Instead of answering, she kissed me. Then she pulled back, smiling mischievously. One condition. Name it. I get to design the wedding invitations. Your typography instincts are questionable. Deal. I slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. I'd measured while she was sleeping. Later that night, lying together and talking about the future, I realized something. Sometimes the worst destructions clear space for something stronger, truer, and more meaningful than what came before. Sometimes you have to lose the house you dreamed of to discover the home your soul actually needs. The betrayal nearly broke me. What followed forced me to rebuild myself from the ground up. But there, with the woman who helped me relearn trust, inside the home I designed with my own hands, I understood something with absolute clarity. Some demolitions don't end stories. They make room for masterpieces.